Hello, 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 and welcome to another Scoutcast brought to you by Fantasy Football Scout. As always, you're joined by me, Andy, FPL Mode, and we are also joined by Seb. How's it going, Seb?
Evening, mate. It's going well, thanks. The magic of the cup is alive and well, I hear.
Oh, it's absolutely beautiful, isn't it? Obviously, me and Rich both wanted to come on this stream as soon as possible, but Seb was like, no, we got to watch the draw.
Yeah, that is how I remember it as well.
Yeah. Could you, both of you as well, if you're watching this on YouTube, could you just let me know whether this is streaming all right? Because I just need to
Yeah,
watch
we're
it.
good. We're good.
Oh, good, lovely. And Rich, we finally have you back. It feels like it's been ages since we've seen you. How have you been?
I was so gutted to miss last week.
I know you
I was
were.
really gutted.
Why's that? Why's that?
No reason. To be honest, it was pre-Salah haul as well. So it was quite funny listening back.
You've missed your chance. You have missed your chance. You could have
Mate.
destroyed me last week, and obviously you chose not to be on. I can't. Was it legs waxing? What was it you were away for?
No, I was just busy because it was New Year's. Just busy.
That's fair.
But and also I'd like to correct you. You knew I didn't have Garnacho in my team.
What?
Because I started to feel a little bit guilty because I think
Stop
when
it.
Palmer scored, I sent
Slander.
that tweet. Then he got an assist, and I found it extra funny. When he scored again, I did feel a little bad, to be honest for you.
I was in a restaurant with my oldest, and I was like having a day out with him, and I saw Palmer scored, and I turned my phone off. I was like, I'm not going to let this ruin my day. And
So you
Seb-
smashed several things and just left the rest.
yeah, basically,
Mate,
yeah.
I was going to say, you know, because we obviously did the stream first half of the Liverpool match, didn't we? And we stopped like basically at half time. 0-0, Salah missed a penalty, but they'd put up like nearly 3 XG at a half or something. I remember saying, because obviously I was chuffed, but trying to like maintain composure because obviously that wasn't going to last. I remember saying as well, I can't remember if it was me or you, but I remember saying like, well, you know, it's 0-0, but they put up whatever. It's like they'll score 4 in the second half.
Yeah.
They scored 4 in the second half.
We've
I
had
felt
quite-
like you were saying that just to save face, just in case.
I mean,
And to be honest, it was
if
worth
if they
doing.
hadn't like missed a penalty, put up great numbers, then I think it would just be to save face. But to be honest, like I don't think like I said, I didn't watch it, but I saw as we were streaming, I saw the numbers go up, and like there's no hope of surviving that, right? Liverpool put up, was it like the highest XG we have on record
Ever,
in the Premier
yeah.
League? Like they absolutely destroyed Newcastle were terrible. Your choice of which, probably both.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was remarkable.
Yeah, I mean,
And I benched Darwin, so I got away with one there.
cool, yeah, just a
Well,
bit.
even a record XG can't get that one a goal, mate.
Yeah.
No, they're gonna have to double that next time.
I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, we're looking at it, Seb. When we were streaming on Friday, you were 17k, and obviously not
Yeah.
owning Salah dropped you down to 106k. It's
Yeah, well, I
ju-
think I was like 80 or 70 after. I think there was like West Ham maybe clean sheet as well, and maybe auto subs. Oh, I guess auto subs counts, doesn't it? But yeah, I went into it about 80 or 70k as well. So not like the end of the world, but a big difference in, you know, having Salah or not having Salah is crazy.
yeah.
I mean,
it
for
really
you
is.
to have Salah and Areola go that big against you, that's pretty unfortunate. I have to say.
I mean, I don't really. I guess we'll get into it when we talk about points rather than.
Exactly,
but
Seb. What a
yeah.
professional. And let's be honest, Seb's always been scared of areolas, so it's only convenient that obviously he it really
Don't
went
get it.
against
Can
him
you
this week. What's
explain?
that?
Maybe
What's
draw a
that?
diagram.
No. Maybe on Scoutcast Unlimited, which is after this one. I'll bring it up for the.
Yeah,
For
you
the
just
fans.
show me, yeah.
Yeah. Right. So talking about tonight, then. We've got our points. We're going to be very, very quickly looking at our points, but maybe we'll talk about Rich's for a little bit longer because we haven't really looked at his yet. We're going to be looking at fixtures. Fixtures are wild in Game Week 21. It's a bit crazy. The Game Week goes on for 2 weeks across 2 weekends. So we need to talk about that because not only does it go across 2 weekends, it also the deadline's moved. So it's now a lot. Well, it's not a lot earlier, but it's a day earlier than we thought it was going to be. So going to make sure that you know about that before you do anything else. Going to be looking at the current double Game Week horizon and how that's kind of panning out at the moment. Obviously, that might be influenced or will be influenced by the FA Cup draw we just watched as well, which is why Seb was so intent on watching it before we started. So we're going to be having a little look at that and thinking about players we've got to be getting in, because if there's one thing Rich loves, it's goalkeepers. If there's a second thing he loves, it's a double game week. So we're going to be making sure that we know exactly what moves we're going to be making moving forward. We're going to be looking at midfielders because Son and Salah aren't going to be in our teams for a little while now, and we need to be replacing them. And I'm not going to lie, all the replacements people wanted to have seem to be dropping like flies at the moment. So we want to be looking at all the options and thinking about who we would be getting in, because I'm pretty sure all of us will be making a move this week. Then we're going to be looking at our over or under, and I've got a special little slide for Seb and Rich, which they don't know about. And then we've got the community team and a bit of a Q&A at the end. So we've got an awful lot to get through tonight. But I'm not going to lie, I actually feel like this is probably going to be one of the most important streams we do of the year. I feel like this is the start of us.
No pressure.
I feel like this is the start of us planning for the future because of all the double game weeks and blank game weeks, and that always feels an important time. But not only that, we're having to replace two of the most important players in the game. So I feel like this is a really important time.
Speak for yourself, mate. I've planned ahead.
Yeah, well, yeah, that too. Well, some people planned ahead and have made moves, and obviously they're getting very worried now that all these, injuries keep happening at the moment. But before we get onto that, let's have a look at some points. I showed you my points last week. I had 77. I obviously benched Palmer, and I am going to give Rich a bit of time to talk about that. I had Areola in goal with 11. Absolute hero. Last game, we get a game of the week. Saliba with 0. Trent with 0. Pedro Porro with 2. Lovely stuff. Saka with 7. Richarlison with 8. Salah with 16. And Son with 9. Any normal week, I'd have been absolutely chuffed with that midfield. And then Solanke with 2. Watkins with 8. Alvarez was my captain with 14. I had Dubravka on the bench with 8, Palmer on the bench with 18, Mitchell on the bench with 6, and Taylor on the bench with 0. So I brought in Alvarez for Archer and captained him and benched Palmer because it was either going to be Palmer or Richarlison I benched. I benched Palmer instead of Richarlison, didn't want to bench Solanke, and obviously lost out on those Palmer points. There you go. I took it quite well, to be honest. I felt quite happy about it. I was like, yeah, it happens. Made me feel alive. Made Rich catch up a bit. Seb, obviously you spoke about my team last week. Rich, just very quickly, go on then. Do what you need
I almost
to.
feel like the moment has gone.
Good.
But I mean, we talked a lot about it on WhatsApp, didn't we, in the morning before.
Yeah.
I think it was between 3 for you, wasn't it? It was Palmer, Solanke, Richarlison. I just felt like Palmer's minutes were going to be. I mean, he did get subbed, but it was like the 91st. Just in my head, Palmer's minutes were the reason I was always going to start him.
Yeah.
And I mean, Richarlison actually got more minutes than we probably thought. And then I get why you didn't bench Solanke because that's one of the dangers when a player does well. Because I bet when you bought him, you possibly had him out to bench this week.
Oh, using FPL team and planning my teams, he was benched this week, and then obviously scores loads of goals, plays against a weakened defensive team in Spurs, and I was like, I'll play him this week now.
Yeah.
But I said to Seb last week, this was a transition week in terms of this is the one week I was going to have 8 good attacking assets, and I had to bench one. Obviously, this was the only week because I was going to have Salah and Son moving forward, so I was never going to have 8 attackers, and I had to bench one, and obviously, I picked the wrong one.
I mean, and we were saying Solanke put up was it 1.2 xg or something like that? So
7 shots.
I thought it was lower than that.
Other than finishing, he did decent.
Yeah, he had a lot of shots, didn't he? So could have swung all the ways. I mean, Palmer's just. I was saying to Seb last week, he's reminding me of Mahrez in that Leicester year where you just don't bench him now. You just keep him all year because he's just going to be ridiculous all year by the looks of it.
Yeah. Also, me and Seb can't laugh at bench points either. I mean,
I mean, we're still miles ahead in that race, I reckon.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I've caught up a bit this week though. 32 on my bench this week. Not nice. With somebody getting a 0 as well.
Oh, it was 32.
Yeah, Dubravka, Palmer, and Mitchell.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that.
Seb, just talk us through your points really quickly, and then we'll go on to Richard. So I know we looked at yours last week.
32.
Yes. Thank you.
On that for a
yeah,
second.
that's what Salah captain got for everybody else as well.
I've been in tears about 2022.
Yeah. Brilliant. Cheers, Rich. Should have accidentally pressed it, but nobody does that. So anyway,
Right.
Seb, talk us through your team.
Not in this day and age.
So I'm in the headline. You've seen mine already. So decent enough score without Salah. Obviously, Salah is an option that you're allowed to have in this game. You're allowed to even double his points sometimes, which I hear can be a pretty smart thing to do. But yeah, this comes back to the Haaland move. It felt like a few months ago now, but it was a few game weeks ago where I did Salah to, I want to say Douglas Luiz and Darwin to Haaland to get Haaland to captain him for Luton. Then after the deadline, we find out he's injured. Could have reversed that to Salah, I guess, for a hit. Didn't. And it would have been for the Burnley match as well, right? I don't think anyone predicted Liverpool and Salah specifically doing that well against Newcastle. Sure, a return or two, fair enough. But hey, if I'd known there was a 30-point haul on the cards, of course I would have taken the hit and captain Salah. But I didn't, and I don't mind too much. That's the way it goes. Like, not having Salah isn't like the mistake I made, if you like. It was allowing myself to be in a situation where I had an injured Haaland, and it goes back, right? So I don't think I can be too cross about that one. That team did great otherwise, and sort of dropped a little bit in rank, but very similar to this time last year, I think. Maybe a few weeks later, but I remember saying the turn of the year, just after Christmas, just after the World Cup last year. It's like 90k before, about 400k afterwards. So a similar situation, and it went all right last year. So just need to find a few good transfers going forward. And I mean, one tiny silver lining if you wanted, which is a very small silver lining. I have 2 free transfers. I have a little bit of money in the bank, and I only have one of the players that we're going to talk a lot about tonight in terms of replacing. So anyone who does have Son and Salah, you're in a much better position than me. But a silver lining, I have 2 free transfers and only one player to replace. So I maybe can do some nicer things with my team in the next couple of weeks compared to people who, have Salah, but they do have about 30 points something. So
I was going to say the smallest of silver linings there, but it is.
It's all right. Like Douglas Luiz is going to bag a hat-trick of penalties next week.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there was going to be a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people were talking about this as well. Was if Haaland was fit, people were going to be selling Salah, possibly for a hit to get Haaland in, because Salah against Newcastle.
Oh, and Sheffield United,
was a tricky game.
Yeah, that was my plan.
It was the Burnley one I was worried about, and I think he did something in that, but it wasn't painful. Yeah, that was once Burnley had gone, I thought, oh, cool, that's fine. It's all right.
And if Haaland was fit, people would have sold for a hit. You would have actually been 4 points up on them.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, he missed a penalty as well, didn't he? That was, again, if anyone wants to see me trying to, I was trying very hard not to celebrate before halftime after a missed penalty, especially with those chances. But it could have even been worse, right? He missed a penalty, so he could have had another goal and had a few points taken off those captains.
But then he was given a penalty to make up for it.
Yeah.
You say, oh, good point. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to dwell on that, but that was one of the tumble. That was a yellow card for a dive. I mean, like I said,
I thought it was.
Makes no difference to FPL. Like, I got destroyed by Salah and he missed a penalty. But in a football sense, that was a pretty crazy one, wasn't it?
Yeah. Speaking about pretty crazy ones, Rich, you had a good week, and obviously the only green arrow on the screen today just looks like it all went right in your team last week.
It was a really weird week because my 5 defenders scored 1 point combined, as in if I include my bench defenders, and then my goalkeepers and front 8 all returned.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Really weird week. But 92. I rolled the transfer, captained Alvarez. I was always going to captain Alvarez. That was the whole reason I had him. Mm-hmm. When I made that decision to go Alvarez over Solanke before the City blank, that was the reason why. And I mean, I'm still a bit gutted I didn't go for Solanke, but it's slowly starting to even out. When Solanke blanks and Alvarez returned 2 in a row, so it's not looking as bad and as desperate as it was. Because honestly, when that Solanke hat-trick went in, I don't know if I've been in one since.
No, I don't think
I don't think I have.
Says a lot, that.
Maybe I have. I don't know. But 92 points without I captained my lowest scoring attacker that was on the pitch. So, pretty happy. I mean, there was no transfer really. The only thing I did consider was Son to Foden instead of Rolling.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been 3 points better off.
I think you've done well. The biggest thing that you both got is 2 free transfers going into this week now. That seems lovely. And obviously, when we look at our moves at the end, towards the end of the stream, you'll see why it's so nice having those 2 free transfers. I mean, it's one of the things that I was considering rather than getting Alvarez in was obviously rolling the free transfer and captaining Salah. But I just kept looking at that fixture and thinking I'm going to want Alvarez for the double game weeks as well. And I was just thinking it just makes sense to make that move. But having those 2 free transfers was something. There is just some weeks that it seems like a really good idea to have those 2 free transfers, doesn't it? And this week seems like one of those weeks.
I mean, you'll have potentially we're going to get Alvarez again in the next match, which I was trying to. It's Newcastle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Away at Newcastle, so maybe not as easy as playing them at the Etihad, but
yeah. No, very true. I've just brought up on the screen here what Game Week 21 looks like. So we've got 5 fixtures from Friday the 12th of January. Now, I'm going to say this quite a few times because people have to remember this. The deadline has changed. I don't feel like there was a massive fanfare about it either. But Burnley and Luton, because of the FA Cup results, now had to have their fixture move forward. So it's now on the Friday. So it's Friday at 7:45, which means the deadline will be 6:15 on Friday night. It was going to be on Saturday, and we could have potentially had some kind of leaks for maybe Chelsea, Man City, so we might have found out about Haaland a little bit on the Saturday, but that's not possible now because Friday night is when the deadline is. So we have to lock in Friday night, which is Friday the 12th of January, And the final game of this game week is Monday the 22nd of January. So a whole 10 days later, which is Brighton versus Wolves. So I'm seeing an awful lot of people, and I'm going to ask both of you about this, bringing in players already. So people brought in players last week when potentially their players they're bringing in, for instance, a Bowen, wouldn't have been playing for another 3 weeks. That seems so risky to me. And Seb, I know we spoke about it last week. Rich, West Ham don't play until Sunday the 21st of January. Bowen's already got a knock. It seems so tough making transfers at the moment. Have you got any advice for people in terms of when to make them? Do you just wait for as long as possible? Because obviously Son and Salah seem to be going down and down at the moment in price.
Yeah, I'm waiting till Friday.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, I don't know when the press conferences are on Friday. I'm assuming the normal time, so probably between like noon and 2:30, 3 o'clock.
For the first 5 fixtures, you mean?
Yeah, it will only be for the first 5 fixtures, and then we won't get the embargoed quotes. So if there are any quotes, like Man City are quite big on them at 10:30, releasing them, but we won't have that luxury. So yeah, for transfer wise, I'm waiting as the last minute. I mean, I've kind of just tried to switch off. I saw, a couple of times that Salah's dropping tonight, those kind of tweets, and I just thought, no, I need to wait. I've done a lot of early transfers this season, a lot more than I normally would.
Yeah.
But yeah, this doesn't seem like the week to be doing it at all. But although probably, it's probably a bit late saying that now.
Yeah. I mean, do you agree with that, Seb? Like, just wait now for the information on Friday, because a lot of people are getting a bit worried about the fact that Salah and Son, they're definitely going to be getting rid of them because, they're gone for a certain amount of weeks, aren't they? And obviously their prices are dropping. But we're already seeing the dangers with, for instance, people that went early on Elise, now he's out. People went early on Bowen. Obviously he got a knock. Probably will play, but he's got a knock. It just seems sensible to wait, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, we discussed this last time, and the only thing that's changed is we've now had the matches we were talking about, which were the cup matches. So for obviously most of the players we're talking about, whether they play on Monday the 22nd of January or Friday the 12th, it's rest. They aren't playing like 3 more matches in that time or anything, which is normally the bigger risk. And also injured players like Bowen maybe could recover, but we aren't going to find out, or if we do find out, we aren't going to find out with enough time to, well, it'll be inside the game week, so you won't be able to do anything about it before the deadline. So I think if you're certain a player's going to drop and you're certain on your move, and the only thing that would stop you is like a training injury between now and the weekend, I guess now you can go early.
No.
But I'd still wait. Hello.
No.
After you, what are you going to say?
No, I was just interrupting.
Oh, you just said no. I just saying no.
Disagree. That's my inner thought.
Fair. No, I think like if someone's been waiting all this time and now like a price, because we talked about like this is one of the rare occasions where there's almost, because sometimes you'd never make a change too early unless like you need exact funds for your plans, etc., etc. And I think we basically even said, even if that's the case, there are so many alternatives because you're selling 2 really expensive midfielders that even exact plans probably don't need to be worried about in this situation. I'd say now we're at the point where if you do have exact plans and blah, 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 especially with more injuries out, maybe you consider it. But I personally, and it sounds like Rich even more personally, would definitely wait until as close to the deadline as possible.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And
I just think, because there's obviously Liverpool are playing on, I think it's Thursday. I want to say Thursday. But yeah, we still got the Liverpool game to go. So we might learn a bit more about who the front 3 are for Liverpool. Obviously, there's a good chance, which I'm sure we'll get to, of Liverpool and City having a double game week coming up pretty soon as well. So then, and I'd like to see that front 3 for Liverpool. Maybe we get to see who's on penalties.
Yeah.
Because that could be a big decider if you're looking at like Darwin or Jota, if you're holding one of them as well. So I think that's massive information. And while we're not going to hear from Moyes before the deadline, maybe something will come out, about Bowen. There's people like ex-West Ham employee, There's always little bits and bobs that come out. Maybe someone will go on a Twitch. Maybe Ben Rama will be on a Twitch stream confirming that Bowen's out.
I don't think it'd be Ben Rama. It sounds like he's going to Lyon, something like that, or Nice. I can't remember where it was.
I did see that actually.
Yeah. But Rich, like, before we move off this bit, to me, I don't know whether I'm just kind of a bit of recency bias here, but this seems like the hardest time that I can remember in terms of making a move, because there's so many different factors at the moment in terms of Son and Salah both at AFCON and Asian Cup, but we don't know how long for. We can only assume how long they're there for. So if we do sell them, when are we going to want them back? Haaland is obviously a massive factor. When are we going to be seeing him back starting games? And obviously it could be this week, probably a bit too early, because he obviously didn't play midweek. but then he could be back the week after. We've got double game weeks to consider. We've got, keeping hold of your funds to try and get these premium players back. But again, we don't know when they're coming back. It seems like a real kind of limbo time at the moment, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, I don't think it will ever rival the COVID seasons. I think those were just so crazy that we just kind of embraced it and almost didn't care.
Yeah.
As in, because it was just, it was just, you just couldn't factor in some of these things. Yeah. So, I mean, it is tricky. I think it's getting a little bit easier. I think the announcement of the doubles has narrowed the players you'd pick from down. What? I can't get my words out. Obviously, Elise was going to be very popular. There was going to be that decision Elise against Eze. I heard you mention last week we were going to compare Elise and Eze. That's now dead in the water. It's basically Eze. Probably not this week. You probably look at him next week after the Arsenal game. It's either Eze or don't bother with Palace, I think now.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's that difficult. I think we definitely narrowed stuff down over the last week or so. And I still think in these next few games, I think one of the Liverpool players is going to become popular. Something's going to happen in that game. I think it's against Fulham.
It's going to be Jota.
It could be Jota. I mean, imagine it's Darwin. It could be anything though. Was McAllister takes a penalty and suddenly people are thinking, I could free up a little bit of money here.
Was it you I saw tweet that Darwin has scored 12 out of 12 penalties?
It's actually 13 out of 13. I did tweet 12 out of 12. They haven't included one he scored injury time one for Colombia as well.
Oh, clash. That's not the Darwin I know.
Obviously, it's Uruguayan.
Good point. You know what, McAllister? I hadn't considered that actually. I was basically wondering, like, would it be Darwin or not? But yeah, McAllister, they've got a very good penalty taker, has joined them, and would probably be a very good deputy.
So Boslai's injured. Yeah. I think it's going to be Darwin. I feel like I've got this narrative in my head that obviously he's the number 9. Surely he's going to want to be given confidence.
And we know.
And I mean, the fact he's not missed a penalty.
Right. No.
Say it again, sorry.
I said we know narratives are always correct as well.
I mean, that's all you can go off, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. It'd be interesting if they obviously get a penalty on Thursday. That's going to be massive in terms of us knowing. It feels like Son all over again. We were waiting for ages just to confirm that Son was on penalties, wasn't it? And obviously it was. But we might not know. We might never know until Salah comes back in game week 25 or somewhere like that. And all of a sudden, then they'll get a penalty and Salah will take it.
We'll always wonder. Like, was Reece James on penalties? Yeah. We would never know.
Like, was Edison on penalties? Yeah. Right. Let's have a look at some fixtures. So, by the way, everything we mentioned there about how tricky it could be or how it's starting to narrow down who we're going for, we're going to be talking about that tonight, so don't worry. So we're going to be looking at those midfielders and those moves that we could be making. Now, before we move any further, we've got Mikhail Tokvam's transfer algorithm up on the screen here. So this is showing us the likelihood of double game weeks and blank game weeks coming up. Now, game week 25 looks like it could be the double game week. So Man City, Brentford, Luton and Liverpool are the 4 teams that are more than likely going to have a double game week, but obviously it's not 100% confirmed yet. But you can see there with the percentages that it's more than likely going to happen, but we'll have to wait and see. Double game week 29, can't wait till we get to that one. The amount of Premier League teams that drew other Premier League teams tonight means that game week 29 should be a little bit easier to navigate, because I'm seeing a lot of people talking about free hitting in that week, so that could be a little bit easier to navigate then, maybe a wild card after it, like dead end into it like we talk about at some point. But game week 25, the big thing with that one, obviously, is if there is a double game week for Luton and Liverpool, we could all get triple Liverpool, and then all of a sudden they have a blank game week in game week 26. So just looking at it now, Seb, kind of, are you looking at your transfers over the next 2 or 3 weeks and thinking, I've got to be thinking about that double game week in 25?
I'd like triple City. I have Alvarez. I'd like Haaland. Probably not this week. And then... So I guess you would say Foden is the natural for most, but with KDB back, with Haaland back, means both Alvarez and then KDB returning is competition for those spots. In real football terms, I don't think Foden gets left out in the cold or anything, but in FPL terms, if he sits out one of those matches that you need him for, that's tough. So I wonder if a defender is more promising there. Maybe a Walker. I think he's played 90 in every match so far. Maybe even a goalkeeper if you really want to go there. But yeah, triple City is probably top of my list. And then, like you mentioned, I'm then looking to supplement that with other players from teams that have good fixtures, hopefully more fixtures. But as you mentioned, there is the possibility of blanks. Whereas if we look here, City's at least is further away. Everyone may have a blank in that 29. So there's an easier route to navigate there, I think, than say, for example, tripling up on Liverpool. who as well, there would be a blank potentially, and then you may be holding triple Liverpool when Salah comes back, and you either have to lose one of them to get Salah, or one of them loses their place so Salah can come into the team. So I think there are more issues there, whereas I think City is a little more straightforward.
Yeah, and Rich, I know we were chatting not that long ago saying that if Salah gets all the way in AFCON, unless he goes out and celebrates afterwards, he will be back for game week 25. So having that kind of route to get Salah in game week 25 seems essential in terms of at least knowing that you can get back to him in some way.
Yeah, he'd have to have a Mane style party. I think it was Mane, wasn't it? That went on a little tour. I don't know about essential. I mean, most likely it would feel a bit weird going into that double without Salah, but we wouldn't be captaining him. We'd probably be captaining Haaland if City and Liverpool double in this week. And I guess that's the annoying thing. We waited for more information, and now we play the game where we're waiting for even more information, and it seems to be a constant game of waiting for that information. But yeah, I would like to have him, but then if you can only have Salah or Haaland, because if you've gone for Trent, you're not going to sell Trent ahead of that double.
Surely you've got to find a way to get Salah in for that week.
Or you could look at chips. I think it's going to be very, very difficult. And yeah, it's probably going to be one I'm going to worry about a little bit nearer the time, because you just never know. I mean, obviously Salah and Son are going to be playing games at the tournament. I mean, what if one of them gets injured? You don't want to plan too hard for it. I mean, I remember my master plan where I bought in Garnacho and then Haaland got injured, and the whole plan was complete waste of time.
But you got the Garnacho haul, so
don't. But you see what I mean. You can plan for something, and then it just doesn't happen for whatever reason. I mean, Haaland could get injured, and then it would be and then it would be really easy to bring Salah in. So I'm just worrying about the immediate future.
But surely, if you can, because I mean, imagine, Seb, a world where you've got a double game week and Salah's a differential. Imagine a world where you've got a double game week for Liverpool, and he's a differential because people either can't get him in, or to get him in, they've got to take a -4, -8, whatever it is, to free up the funds. Like, genuinely, people could be taking -8s in that week to free up funds to get Salah back. But imagine if you can get
sounds like a retribution arc to me, my friend.
But then obviously he's got a blank game week the week after. So, but it does seem like, getting Salah in that week or leaving a route to get him, makes sense.
I guess like a differential maybe is slightly rich, because I guess there will be people who hold him, either dead teams who hold him, who we're still competing against. If you're below a dead team, it's still below a dead team, and I'm sure I am. And there will be people who get him back. There will be people who deliberately held him through this period on the bench or what have you, which is easy to do this year with, funds, and especially with Haaland having been out, and who knows if he actually will be back. Obviously, Son away, KDB maybe not ready to be back in our teams. And of course, he may well be the most popular transfer that week. Also, if I heard you correctly, there were assumptions there that this is if Salah gets to the final, right? If they go out, and I think, I'm sure odds and knowledge have been updated since we last looked at this, but were they something like 6th favourites? I think when we looked at this a couple of weeks ago, someone in the chat mentioned that.
Favourites, I think.
Are they actually?
No, they're not favourites.
I think they're right up there, though, aren't they?
I think they were like 4th or 5th. I think Senegal were the favourites.
But remember as well, if they lose the semi-finals, they'll play a 3rd place playoff as well. So there's a 3rd place playoff too.
Just to be clear, though, the only scenario, I mean, basically, if they run us up or they finish 3rd or 4th or whatever, most likely, almost certainly, he's going to be back for game week 25.
Yeah.
It's only if they were to win. So this is a very unlikely thing. But if they're to win, and then they would go on a tour of Egypt for 5-6 days. And I mean, he doesn't even drink, does he? So
no. I think the point here being like, him not being back at all seems quite unlikely. But we're discussing the fact that he would be back, but only just in time for 25. And so would he even be fit, or would he be a differential? There's probably a good chance, and I don't have the schedule in front of me, so apologies if I've missed a 2-week gap here. But there's a good chance he could be back for 24 as well. And then this question's just out the window. You've got 2 transfers to deal with him. We'll know if he's fit. We'll know what the team looks like. I think then everyone has him back. So for me, and I haven't planned my Liverpool transfers this far ahead, so take this with a pinch of salt. But for me, it's less about how do I get Salah back in, and more how do I set my team up to be flexible for that option. So if I have, say, 3 Liverpool, if those are 3 midfielders, that could be real tough. Or if I have 3 Liverpool and no way of getting that money back into Salah without, say, selling Haaland, that also could be tough.
Yeah. And Rich, a few people have mentioned it in the chat already. Why don't you just hold Salah? Why don't you just hold him on your bench all that time? Whenever he comes back, you're going to have him before everybody else does, and you've literally already got him in your team. Is that an option?
So what I'm going to do, without getting into my personal transfers too much, but obviously a lot of people have got Son, Salah, and then possibly 3 midfielders they're quite happy with, like Palmer, Saka, whoever. I'm going to be selling, just using one transfer this week. So I'm going to sell Son before I sell Salah. So I'll keep Salah on the bench. Most likely I'm going to end up selling Salah because I'll need or want the money. But I just think holding him that little bit longer gives a little bit more flexibility in my mind. Because obviously the money, if I was going to use it, would be for Haaland.
Yeah.
Then let's say Haaland doesn't come back or Haaland's injured. Maybe then I'll just end up keeping Salah for another couple of weeks.
I think like this week, if you have both, you probably, and like 2 free transfers like Rich, not to presume what you're going to do, but like a Son to a Foden, roll the other transfer, see how Haaland does. Then you have, the money and the transfer for a Haaland. And if that doesn't work out, you've got Salah and another transfer rolled as well. I think that's quite nice. And, by then we're into like looking at game week 23 and Salah might be back in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Plus by then so much time has elapsed because it's such a long game week.
Yeah.
You've had you might get more price drops, but I'm past caring about that anymore. But we'll get more information. It'll be closing in on February by then.
Yeah, it's exactly the
transfer window as well. Worth mentioning, we don't expect January to shake things up too much, but a Timo Werner coming into Tottenham. Yes, I know Chelsea, Timo Werner, whatever, but even if it just means we need to consider number 9 minutes for Richarlison, there are going to be variables that we're currently unaware of that will be affected by transfers in the next 3.5 weeks.
Yeah. Lovely stuff. And City, we've already mentioned there about Foden, but we're going to be coming on to City, I would have thought, when we look at our midfielders as well.
One more thing on this. I think it's quite obvious, but I think people were talking about getting Son and Salah back, a few weeks ago. I think the announcements we've had, or the potential doubles, has just killed Son as an asset for now.
Yeah.
As in, I don't think we need to be thinking about how to get Son back. That's just...
Not at the moment, definitely.
Yeah, that's just problem for another month.
Yeah, exactly.
With him out left and with Richarlison as a cheaper option, actually, doing a few points, even if Tottenham did look good, you could probably get decent, horrible word, coverage without having to make Son work. Unlike, say, when Liverpool look good, you want Salah.
Yeah. Right. Let's have a look at midfielders then. So we've just mentioned Salah and Son, and I completely agree with you, Rich, and I know Seb was saying that too, that selling Son before Salah seems to make a lot of sense at the moment. Now, we've got some midfielder graphs up here, and Seb, I'm going to pass it over to you because I know you made these graphs. So we're all looking at, getting Salah and Son out of our teams at the moment and who to replace them with. I thought this was going to be such an easy transfer, and it was going to be, get this player in. Bowen seemed to be that person. Bowen seemed to be the one that everybody was going to. He's got Sheffield United at home away next, and then he's got some nice fixtures after that as well. But obviously with him having the knock and with Paquetá maybe being injured and kind of having a bit of a niggling injury, that seems to affect him quite a lot as well. Doesn't seem to be as dead certain as most people think. So we've got quite a few options here to discuss, haven't we?
Yeah, so we have a graph here. It's got quite a few names on, basically midfield performers throughout the season so far. A minimum requirements here were 5 appearances, 45 minutes per appearance, and I also excluded a couple of players. For example, if I'm correct, Bowen isn't on here. There was a couple of injuries I removed. I also missed out a couple of names. Bowen is that? Oh, cool.
Where's Wally?
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we go for it. There's a couple I excluded for reasons, but I tried to make it as comprehensive as possible. Just about fits on the screen, as you can tell. I think Andy's resized it a bit so it looks a bit neater, but it may be a full screen job for people. At the end of this little section as well, I have just put up the raw data table if people want to, pause for a second and look at that. But the first table we have here this does obviously include Salah and Son as well. Midfield performers, FPL midfielders that is, throughout the season so far in terms of XGI, which is our highlighted green bars, and then the XGI delta between their goals and assists. So basically, how much have they overperformed or underperformed those numbers, which we'll highlight in the next graphic as well. But I think what this shows is 2 things, really. Obviously, it's ordered by XGI, so it slopes nicely. How very good Salah has been here. When we add XGI, XG, and XA together, we can look at those 2 numbers separately in a little bit. Son's quite high as well there. And then there's a few other options in there. Maddison, we know, is out injured, but Richarlison right up there, which is lovely. Elise, shame if he's going to be out. Saka obviously done brilliantly, but as we'll get on to, underperformer for him. It shows what we're trying to replace, I think, in our teams. So, Salah, very much the big one, and Son, especially as he's been a captain option, is big too, but maybe less so in terms of the points we'll feel missing from our team, I think.
Yeah, and I know, like, we say this every week, and I know Rich is obsessed with them as well. But look at those three at the top, pen takers. Salah, Palmer, and Saka, right at the top there, obviously all pen takers. Son's up there, obviously, as well. And even Bruno's managing to keep up still as well. And it just makes such a massive difference, doesn't it? And if I bring up the next table, Seb, because you're looking at the Delta now as well, makes for an interesting story bringing that up.
Yeah, so I mean, you can see a lot on the first graph as well, and obviously you can now see the inverse where the green XGI bars are sort of shaded but still in there. It was a bit messy having them both on the same, so I just wanted to highlight the difference. What this obviously then shows is on the same scale, so it's obviously not like a cumulative thing; it's on the same scale here. How those players have over or under performed their XGI. So, for example, Bailey, which is one of my typos, I only caught it as I passed it over, so sorry, you'll have to drop his E for now. He has nearly overperformed his XGI numbers by the same amount as his XGI exists in the first place. And the most remarkable one is Doku, who basically has, doubled his
one game
output that he should have got. But there's lots of reasons for that, and we know especially assists, right? You take a long range shot that has no XG behind it, someone tapped it in, you don't get an assist, but it was actually an FPL assist and an easy one. Sometimes XG will replace things like that. Obviously, if you take a shot that is a good shot and don't score, but someone gets the tap in, you don't get XA, but you do get an assist in FPL, but you accumulated the XG for that. So the numbers account for it a little bit, but we know they can be a little bit off. And we also know player quality comes into this massively, right? So I'm guessing Son, just checking him here, yeah, he's got the third largest-ish blue bar there, which we know is a great finisher. So we would expect that. Someone like Salah actually is not one of the highest ever performers, which you could almost argue is really encouraging because he probably has room to overperform more. And then there are a few people who have underperformed. Eze, for example, quite massively. I think we know that. Yeah, Saka. I'm guessing Bruno should be down off the bottom, Rashford as well. So it just shows what they've put up in terms of the underlying numbers and how they've actually performed, if you like. And of course, you can lend your own context to that. Over a long period of time, I very much would like to go with the green bars. But FPL is often a short-term game, and if you think you can derive more from these blue bars, someone's in form or whatever, please, by all means, be my guest, and that's why we've provided that here.
Exactly. And to go on to the last screen then as well, this is all of that put together, I believe, isn't it? And then kind of we're going to have a chat about who we are thinking about replacing them with.
Yeah, so this is now, I've now taken a few names out of this. Salah and Son, for example, shouldn't be there. This is the one Bowen shouldn't be on. I've got Elise in there, and I think I left another injured player in as well, either because I was uncertain how long they were out for, or I'm just rubbish at finding names in a list, one of the two. But yeah, this is now like our replacement. So the previous two slides, I guess, give us a bit of context of what we're trying to replace and who's performing, who's not performing. And these are, give or take, our direct midfield replacements for Salah and Son. The reason I say direct is, of course, these funds could go into our defence. If you don't have Trent, maybe that's a great option. People will be looking to get Haaland, maybe Darwin, so we can talk about them separately. But the direct replacements here are our midfielders with, your Elise, your Richarlison at the top there, putting up good XGI, which is our green. XG, which is our green, and good XA in Elise's case as well, which is our blue. So the one thing to take from this and the reason I've separated those two things is the combined green and blue is obviously their XGI, which we've been looking at in the previous tables. But in FPL, you obviously get more points for goals, especially if you're a midfielder, than you do assists. So if, for example, we were to take someone like, I don't know, Garnacho, maybe, and see that more of his XGI comes from that green XG, you could maybe shift him up in his estimations here, say compared to a Neto, who is getting more in the blue XA, because that will translate to fewer points relatively than Garnacho.
So just very quickly as well, for the people that are listening on the pod, in terms of the players here from when they go down, so this is their XG and XA put together. It's Elise's at the top, then Richarlison, Bailey, Jota, Eze, Bowen, Neto, Odegaard, Diaby, Grealish, Gordon, Grosh, Sterling, and then there's quite a few after that as well. So if you wanted to have a look at the actual table, Seb might even, because he's lovely, put it on Twitter for you if you ask him very kindly, because it is a fantastic table. I mean, Rich, we're looking at this. I know you're gutted about Elise because you and Seb have been going on about Elise for probably about a month now, and obviously he's injured. And he's top of this in terms of who we're looking at to get in. When you're looking at this table, who are you thinking, I want him? He's the one I want. And obviously we've got to be thinking about the double game weeks coming up soon as well. But who is it you're looking at the most?
2 years I've waited for that perfect moment to get Elise, and I think we were so close.
Yeah.
I mean, one of them is a player I have. It's Richarlison. Now I know Timo Werner's just signed. I think that's gone through today actually.
Yeah.
The loan deal. But I mean, it doesn't put me off. But obviously, it's easier probably to say that as an owner. And I suppose people who don't own him are probably going to be looking at players like Foden and Jota and whoever else, because chasing doubles is a lot more fun. But yeah, I think Richarlison, I mean, they're absolutely standout stats, aren't there?
Yeah.
I suppose one thing is interesting looking at this is a lot of the players at the top, and I guess you'd expect this, maybe Seb can confirm, but a lot of these players haven't played that many minutes this season, as in Elise, Richarlison, Bailey, Jota. Eze's been injured. So it probably does say how actually Bowen, I'm quite surprised he's that high, because obviously he's had very, very good minutes.
Yeah.
This season. Him and Odegaard are probably the only ones, and Gordon, I suppose.
DRB's been all right, although dropped off a bit maybe with Bailey coming back in. But yeah, I think you're right. I should mention, I can't remember if I did, that this is obviously all per 90. So, these are not points this and not points that. That's per 90. As I mentioned, minimum of 5 appearances, 45 minutes per those appearances as well, just to make sure we don't have anyone who has hardly appeared. KDB, for example, isn't on here. We could have taken last season's numbers. Please go look those up in the members area. But for this season, we have nothing, so I haven't included him. And yeah, as Rich said, I think there's probably a bit of recency bias, not in the sense we usually use it, but in terms of the numbers here, because smaller sample, playing well. Elise, for example, just about getting over that 5 appearance threshold, putting up great numbers, jumps to the top here. Maybe over time that would smooth out a little bit and we would find him more in the sort of upper middle of this table. But potentially that's fixtures too. So I think there is more context to bring into this if you're making your decisions, but hopefully it's a good long list from which you can build your short list.
Yeah.
Is Bruno Fernandes not on here at all?
Bruno, I think I removed Bruno and Rashford from this one because I didn't think they were particularly viable replacements for Son and Salah.
How dare you?
With price and fixtures, I basically wanted... So I think Garnacho's on here because it's like, okay, if the fixtures aren't great, but that's a way to get Haaland, so that's viable. Bruno and Rashford felt less viable. The real reason was I wanted this to fit on the screen, so I had to take out some players.
Yeah.
Spurs, Wolves, West Ham. I think that's pretty good. They got Luton and then Fulham.
Who's
after,
this?
Of course, Villa.
United,
yeah.
I mean,
awesome.
For me, it's Garnacho's the one that's standing out for me in terms of the price, because we're going to have to get a cheap midfielder in at some point if we're going to continue with these 3 strikers. So obviously,
I mean,
Garnacho...
so please, obviously, Bruno and Rashford, please do consider them. They're on the previous 2 slides as well, but for this one, just dropped them off.
Yeah. A few things that stand out for me here, by the way. I was just going to mention Richarlison's XG being higher than every other player on this table's XG and XA put together, apart from 3 players, I think is massive, isn't it, in terms of his goal threat compared to the rest of the players on this list. But there's just so many midfielders we could pick from that look good. Like, we've already mentioned that Jota, who's going to start coming into teams because of the double. Eze, who, with Elise out, will be on penalties. And obviously Crystal Palace are looking interesting. Bowen, who I know has got a knock, but like you said, in terms of the amount of minutes Bowen's played, for his XG and XA to be up there per 90, and for him to be 6th, I think is pretty good there. I mean, I'm going to kind of press you for an answer here, Rich. I'm going to ask you for a top 3. So if you could tell me, and I'm going to go to you after, Seb, so you get a bit of time to think about it. Rich, who are your top 3 midfielders here that you would pick? And you can give us whatever criteria you like, by the way.
And they have to be on this list.
I should jump in just with one more thing for Rich as well. Apologies to interrupt. You made me look. So the only other player to compete with Richarlison in what you mentioned there, having a huge XG, would be Palmer. I've removed him too, and Saka, because the assumption is everybody owns them already who is looking for Son and Salah replacements.
And starts them every week.
Yeah, exactly.
But so if Rich were to say Palmer, I think that's a fair shout, but obviously isn't on this list because my assumption is you have him, so are looking for other replacements.
Stop saying sorry, Rich.
I'm not really sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
I do feel a little bad.
Shut
Your
up.
face. Your face lights up and then...
I thought you were just finishing with that then. Your face. But you can give us whatever criteria you like. So if you give us we got to think about the double game week, that's absolutely fine. If you talk about budget, if you talk whatever it is, who are your top 3 midfielders that you would consider to replace Son or Salah this week?
From this list?
From this list, yeah. So
from
not
this
Palmer,
list. I mean,
not Saka. Just assume that they should be getting them if they don't have them already, for instance.
I mean, number one's got to be Richarlison.
Okay.
The reasons we've just spoken about. Then I'm really, really looking at Foden now. I mean, obviously they potentially got that double coming up. We've already heard, from KDB and from Pep that De Bruyne is not going to be playing 90 minutes for a while. So, and all the Man City predictors seem to think he's pretty nailed, nailed for a City asset anyway. So Richarlison, then Foden, probably then Grosh. I've kind of wanted him for a while. The only downside with him is obviously when Pedro, and I had to mention him, when Pedro wasn't playing that often, there was a chance that Grosh was going to be on penalties.
Yeah.
Now Pedro's playing pretty regularly. You would imagine he's obviously second choice, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, his stats do look good. Their fixtures look good. So yeah, he's one I'm strongly considering as well. And to be honest, I was considering all of those over Bowen anyway.
Yeah, interesting. What about you, Seb? What are your top three?
I would go Richarlison, Eze, Foden, with Gross replacing one of Foden or Eze if, say, minutes, or if we think the impact of Lise being out hurts Eze despite him probably having penalties.
I want Eze as my fourth then.
Fair. Well, we'll just have the same. I mean, that seems on form for us. We'll just have the same list. I'll have Eze. You can have Elise, mate, if he comes back early, right?
Okay, thanks, mate.
That's all right, buddy. And then, I guess there should be a nod to Liverpool players here as well.
God.
So, like,
That's
your
all right,
Diaz,
buddy.
your Jota.
Crystal Palace mid friend. Oh.
We're not cool enough to share like Arsenal or City midfielders.
No, exactly.
We know our
Crystal
place. We settle for
Palace
Palace midfielders. Yeah. But yeah, I think a nod to Liverpool is important here as well. Like Jota and Diaz both should be on this list. I think. Yeah, they are cool.
Yeah.
But I think minutes and lineup and penalties, right, for a Darwin, for example, is a little bit of uncertainty there. But I could see people going to any of those players, with my top three being Richarlison, Eze, Foden.
Yeah.
I mean, like we mentioned earlier, that Liverpool-Fulham game could chuck Jota into the stratosphere. Whether or not he should, I don't know. I mean, let's say he starts, he does well, he takes a penalty, while McAllister and Darwin are on the pitch.
He's been a good
I
asset
have
before.
no basis for this, but I just don't see Jota as a penalty taker. Like, I have nothing to base that on. There's nothing.
He's been
I
a
get
good
what
asset.
you mean, and he never plays 90 minutes either. So as much as I do like him as an asset, and Gakpo's right there as well.
His stats per 90 are great. He's fourth on this list, and his stats per 90 are great in terms of when he plays, he does well. It's just how often he can play. Just before we move off this, by the way, my top three, I'd have Foden top personally. I think Foden with that double game week coming up, and if he is potentially kind of nailed moving forward, which is always what we say about Foden, but it does look more like that now. I think you can't ignore him. I think Richarlison, you can't ignore that XG compared to the rest of them on this list, so he'd be second for me. And I think Bowen, I think he's going to be absolutely fine. I think he is a good pick moving forward.
You can't bring him in though.
No, that's the problem. See, so if I wasn't going for Bowen, I think I'd say Garnacho because of how cheap he is, and because I think people are going to be wanting to get somebody that cheap in soon anyway, because of Salah coming in potentially. So I feel like he's not somebody I would get straight away, but I think he's in my mind definitely for somebody.
You can wait a game week on Bowen though, can't you? Like we said earlier, you could make one transfer. You could get a midfielder from this list for one of those two, hold the other, say Salah, on your bench for a week, which means you have nearly 2 weeks to see if Bowen is fit and plays, and if he comes through that match, and that could then be your next transfer.
Yeah.
But then by then it's Eze or Elise season basically.
Yeah, true.
Because of that fixture.
In that case, you're just not getting Bowen, really, I think, because
no,
probably don't take that gamble this far ahead of news, right? We're not going to get a David Moyes press conference until a week's time.
A few people are mentioning, didn't Jota take penalties for Wolves when Jimenez wasn't taking them? I thought Neves took him. Didn't Ruben Neves take him instead of Jota? Or Moutinho?
I want to say yes, but again, that's me. You said a name and I nodded.
I think
I just remember his minutes not always being fantastic.
He did have a couple of years ago when he first joined Liverpool. I remember everybody getting him in, and he scored a brace at dinner time at lunchtime at one point. So he's been a good asset for him before. But it's just
Jota. I mean, I remember
Yeah.
having him. I think it was against Arsenal, and he was benched. I remember I was fuming. He came off the bench and scored a brace, and I'm pretty sure it was against Arsenal. So
Diogo Jota, according to Transfermarkt, has taken one penalty for Wolves in the Championship, and he scored it. But he's taken no other penalties.
Some very niche knowledge the chat have, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
It's against Rotherham, I believe.
So yeah, I mean, he could, but based on that, assuming that source is right, He's not going to take a penalty.
I'd love it to be McAllister. Oh, what that would make
What, 'cause I
everything
have Darwin?
interesting. That would make what's that? Anyway, let's have a look at some over-unders. I hope people enjoyed that. By the way, Seb will put these up on
work,
Twitter
Seb.
because, like I said, especially for those people listening on the pod as well, make sure you go and find Seb on Twitter if you haven't already. If you don't follow him, you should be.
I'll stick them under the Scout thing. You don't have to follow me. It's fine.
Well, no, give yourself some credit, mate. Give yourself some credit. They're lovely tables. I think this is fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Could you do me a favour? Could you flick onto just that raw data table for 1 second so that anyone...
Very quickly. I'm just aware of time. That's all, yeah.
No, I appreciate that so much. I won't say anything, just so that people can pause it as it comes up and then we can move on.
Yeah, it's on there now.
Thank you, mate. So that's just got the raw data for everyone.
I don't actually know what's going on right now.
It's just a giant picture of your face, mate.
Yeah,
nice.
So there's another slide on here with the raw data that Seb's put in all the tables. So if you wanted to see the actual raw data, you can see it there, and it's all color coded in terms of this is good, this is bad. So you can have a look at it and see what it looks like
in that accent as well.
Exactly, this is good. And people in the chat as well. I've just said it there. Make sure say thanks, Seb, because that is some great stuff that we put up.
What's
there.
it, Andy?
Thank you very much.
The player bottom of that, you were looking at getting him. I'm surprised you've not mentioned him.
Yeah, I know. That's because he's injured, isn't it? Like, it sounds like he's got a niggling injury. Moyes came out and said, we thought he was okay, but it sounds like it's worse than we thought in terms of this niggling injury, and it's hurting him when he's playing. So I don't think we can get him now. It was him I was looking at because I needed to get a player that was under 7 million if I wanted to be able to get Haaland straight back. But now I'm kind of thinking, do I just... basically, my funds thoughts have changed, and so I'm thinking that I don't need to spend less than 7 million, if that makes sense. But I thought Paquetá was going to be quite a good shout with the fixtures coming up. His XA is not too bad, but yeah, he's bottom of this list. Right, let's move on to some over-unders then. So I've got some very interesting players to look at, and the first one I think you'll both like. So, Cole Palmer in game week 20, playing against Luton away. Will he get more or less than 17.5 points? What do you think, Seb?
Wait, this wasn't on the list.
In game week 20, will he get more than 17.5 points? What do you think?
I'm not certain, mate. I might bench him.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, actually, I'd do that as well. What do you think, Rich?
Massive over.
Massive over. God, do you know what? I wish we would have showed this the week before.
Bless you, mate. Well played.
Yeah, I'm going to say thank you to Ferrell because he made this graphic for me. I thought,
I like that.
Yeah, you've got to laugh at yourself, haven't you? Could you just look at it there? 17.5 points.
Do you know what? It is ridiculous. But I didn't have Solanke, so...
He didn't get
over
17.5 though, did he?
It's the same pain. It's the same pain.
Exactly. Right, let's look at the actual proper over and unders now. So we've got some fantastic players on here that a lot of them we've spoken about already. So Bowen's up first, Sheffield United away, Bournemouth at home, Man United away, 13.5. Seb, what do you think? Over or under 13.5?
I guess the big one here is fitness, right? For next weekend. Oh, not next weekend even. So I'm going to go just under. Ooh. Because of minutes concerns. If I'm wrong on minutes, I'm probably wrong on points.
Yeah. Rich?
Yeah, I'm going to go under. I think there's been a lot of people saying because there's 2 weeks, Bowen will be back, but we don't know that. That's more hope than anything else. So, I mean, I'm not saying he's definitely going to be out. I haven't got a clue, but there were videos of him being, well, they say helped off the pitch, but he was walking on his own feet. Yeah. Which is very gingerly. But look what happened with Haaland. He had a foot injury, didn't he? And he's been out. Some people said, he'll only be out a couple of days.
Yeah. So you've heard it here first. Bowen out for 6-7 weeks.
I don't know about that, but definitely under.
Yeah, no, don't take that for gospel. I'm just
100% under.
Yeah, 100% under. Foden is up next. Newcastle away, Burnley at home, Brentford away. 14.5 I've given him, Rich. Go on, get us excited. Over, under.
Do you know what's funny? I'm probably going to bring him in, but I don't feel like massively confident. The first fixtures, I don't think it's amazing. I know Newcastle just conceded record numbers of goals away from home.
Yeah.
I'm going to go I'm going to go over.
Okay.
But it's a very small over, and I think most of it's going to be that Burnley game.
Okay. Seb?
So I was just because I that first fixture in it, I feel like I still have Newcastle as a good defence in my head. So I was just looking up the numbers for the season. They are, I can't do counting, but they're probably like 14th now for extra, like 14th worst for XGA. 33.5 over the season. Arsenal, for context, 16.3 at the top.
Do you mean
City with
XGC?
17.8. Well, FPRF is XGA, so expected goals against.
Oh, okay.
Expected goals conceded, probably the same thing. Give or take, yes. What you said, same thing. But say, for example, Liverpool haven't put up 7, but have put up 3 against them, which would still be, probably a hammering. They then go and be about 8th in this table. So it is all quite squashed. So yeah, they're not the basically elite defense they were at one point before. But, do we over adjust for recent results? I'm not sure. If they are still terrible, even at home, then yeah, Foden could look pretty good here because I think Burnley's nice. Brentford's good enough. 14.5 is still quite high. I might go just under because I'm still uncertain if Newcastle are a bad defense. And then there's minutes going forward. Do you get 80 odd out of all of these? If KDB's back, I think there's a start for KDB in these next 3 if he remains fit. Yeah. If Haaland is also fit, Foden's been brilliant, but two someones have got to miss out.
I'd love to see him start to use KDB and Foden together. I think it'd be lovely if he can sort out a formation that gets him playing both.
Yeah, well, I mean, Foden on the right with KDB. Oh, actually, I say that.
The other way around.
Obviously, KDB goes right, doesn't he? And we know what Pep wants on the left, or at least somewhere in the team with like the sort of Grealish now becoming Doku type player. And I don't know. I mean, Foden's provided that width and that sort of like, around the outside penetration before, but I don't know if that's what he wants from him now. And he has players that will do a better job there. So yeah, it'd be interesting. Yeah. Tune in probably to someone like Luke on Twitter, right? Who know better than me.
Roy Inch, by the way, has said he's looking at Spider. I'm not. I've got the United game on in the corner.
Watching Wigan.
And Seb's mate Dallo scored the goal. Estepinian.
You still got him, mate. I still got him. I need to play him.
This doesn't count, Seb. Estepinian's up next. 10.5 I've got him. He's got Wolves at home, Luton away, Crystal Palace at home. Easily the best fixtures out of all these players. 10.5 points, Rich. What do you think? He scored a banger last week and midweek. What do you think?
I did see someone say that both his goals have been bangers. But I think they've had a combined XG of like 0.04.
Yeah.
And obviously there's all the stats like Brighton, they kept their first clean sheet the other week. I'm going to go over. I'm going to go over there. That seems, surely he's going to average like 3.5 points a week.
Surely. Seb, over under?
Yeah, I think the only thing that stops an over is fitness, and we probably can't predict that. Brighton's defense hasn't been great, but I think they keep a clean sheet here. He's got the attacking threat. And I think, if anything, this highlights, Pascal Gross's got those fixtures as well. If he were to have penalties, he becomes, which relies on Pedro not being on the pitch, which we just can't really predict, but he becomes very attractive, which is why I think, even though he was in the middle of that table we looked at, he was in both mine and Rich's top 3-4, I think, wasn't he?
So, Pedro, Rich. Anyway, Diogo Jota's up next. Bournemouth away, Chelsea at home, Arsenal away. 11.5 I've given him, which is very reserved, I feel. But Seb, what do you think? 11.5 over or under?
I mean, he clears it in Bournemouth if he starts and does well, doesn't he? Bournemouth's been better recently, but Liverpool obviously still the much better team and capable of blowing Bournemouth away. Chelsea are a confusing one. Arsenal should be tough. I think in the cup he scored, didn't he, against them?
He did.
Which, with bonus, he would get close to 11.5 just for doing that. But I think it's fair to say Arsenal were probably the better team in that match.
I should say he didn't score against them, did he? It was a Diaz and an own goal. So no, sorry, Jota didn't.
Oh, sorry, my goodness, my mistake. Sorry. If he were to score, then he may get points, and they've obviously scored 2 against them in the cup. But I think Arsenal probably were the better team in that match, belying my not watching the cup there, aren't I? You're like, oh yeah, Jota scored. Sure, someone scored. I saw a 2-0 on the internet. And I've read reports that Arsenal were the better team for most of it, but Liverpool got the result. So I think while it's a generous score, it could be tough, and I will go over. But if he hasn't got close to it in the Bournemouth match, I will feel pretty worried.
Yeah, Rich?
Yeah, this one's tough. I was actually thinking under then, but I'm gonna go over.
Ooh.
But I don't think he starts all 3.
Yeah, that's my worry. That's why I kind of went reserved, I think.
Yeah. I don't even know if he starts 2.
Pedro Neto up next. Not really somebody we spoke a lot about in the last couple of tables, but Brighton and Hove Albion away, Man United at home, Chelsea away. He's back now, got an assist midweek as well. I've only given him 9.5. What do you think, Rich? Over or under?
I'm going to go under.
Seb?
I think that's a safe under.
2.6.
Really? Oh, not even a clean sheet. Awful.
So good at maths.
And then your mate Seb, Bruno Fernandes up last. Spurs at home, Wolves away, West Ham at home. Fixtures aren't terrible. 12.5 I've given him. What do you think? Over or under?
My mate. It's probably the player I spend most time on Twitter arguing against. Not in an FPL context, I guess. So yeah, fair enough. A tough one, right? Because Bruno Fernandes not getting 12.5 over 3 fixtures, 2 of which are like green on the ticker, is remarkable, right? But he probably hasn't on average so far this season. So I feel like
He
I
must
should
have done.
what 12.5
Maybe
average
not, actually.
in 3 matches. He'd be doing a lot better than
Oh
he's
no,
done
you're
so
probably
far.
right.
Yeah, I don't think he. Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's a kind of fixtures, but I mean, see kind of fixtures, right? West Ham at home is probably all right, right? Wolves away, Wolves have been better. Tottenham, I guess they need to actually have a defense, but I'll go just over, but I think I'm going to be very wrong.
What do you think, Rich?
Need to see how many points per game he's got.
Yeah, I'm just looking now.
3.6. He's not far off.
He's only got 68 points this year. So divide
crazy.
that by 19.
The fixtures, I think they're really good fixtures, especially with 2 home games against Spurs and West Ham. So, yeah, I'm going to go over. It's basically 1 attack in return for him, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, with bonus, yeah.
Okay, lovely stuff. Right, let's have a look at our bus teams then. So this is my bus team. I've got Areola in goal. I've got Saliba, Trent, Pedro Porro, and Taylor, who's starting at the moment because I haven't made a transfer. I'm not sure whether he's going to be playing, but we should know whether he's going to be playing because they're obviously now the first fixture in the game week. He's got Luton at home, so it's not too bad a fixture if I have to play him, but I'm not expecting to. Then I got Saka, Richarlison, Palmer, and then Solanke, Watkins, and Alvarez up top, with Salah and Son both on my bench, and Mitchell and Dubravka on my bench as well. So it will most likely, this is what I'm thinking at the moment, but I am waiting until Friday, it will be Son to Foden, I think I'm going to do. So I've then got Foden for the double game week. I'm just looking at it though and thinking that fixture isn't the best, but I do feel like I just want to have Foden in there, to be perfectly honest. I was looking at going under 7 million so I could get back to Haaland as soon as I wanted to. But to be honest, if I feel like Haaland's going to do that much when he first comes back, I'd just get him in for a -4. And I just feel like that would be absolutely fine. So I'll probably captain him if I really want him that badly anyway. And if I feel like he is going to destroy whoever he plays, then I feel like a -4 is absolutely fine. Especially with the double game week coming up, it feels a little bit better. So yeah, I'm kind of happy with the team, to be perfectly honest. You know, some of those fixtures aren't amazing, but with Salah and Son obviously there, I've got to get rid of one of them. And I feel like Foden's the one. Captaincy's tough this week. This is the first week for quite a while because we don't have Salah and we don't have Son and we don't have Haaland. I feel like captaincy's interesting this week. I don't fancy going for Saka. I think Palmer could get it, which feels could get it. Yeah, so it's
we've all got our captain on a different player, and one of us does have Palmer at the moment.
Yeah, I'm on Alvarez at the moment, but I don't think I did. I think that's still coming over from last week, but I think it's between Saka and Palmer for me, and I feel like Palmer's probably edging it at the moment.
Coming over from last week, you've got Palmer vice captain, mate. Don't lie,
mate. It's like it's like parent guilt. You know, when you do something and you think, oh god, I feel so bad, and then you like overcompensate afterwards. This is what I'm doing with Palmer. I'm like, I benched you last week. I'm so sorry. Have the captain's armband this week.
And then he misses a penalty and gets.
And then he misses a pen. Yeah, exactly. Could you imagine if you then bench him, Rich? I won't do Scoutcast again. Seb, what do you think? How's your team looking? Talk us through it.
Oh, it's looking all right, mate. I don't have one of those players with a red flag, which is lovely. Careful, meticulous planning ahead.
Yes, you do.
I don't have one of the players with a red flag. Yeah. By the way, thank you for being gentle about Salah. Because whoops.
You've got an injured goalkeeper.
Now that we say again, sorry.
You've got an injured goalkeeper.
I do have an injured goalkeeper. Yeah. Well, I've got David Raya though, mate. You know, it's best defense in the league.
Exactly.
Not that you'd know in FPL. So yeah, my team is David Raya, Trent, Porro, Gabriel, Son. Obviously in the lineup right now has a flag, as if he's going to be back. He's not going to be here. So that'll either be a transfer or a benching. I've got my captaincy on Saka. That's pretty tentative. Richarlison there, Palmer with the vice, Douglas Luiz in the team as well for a penalty or nothing, hopefully. And Alvarez and Watkins up front with a bench of a flagged goalkeeper in Johnston, Solanke, Dalot, and Trippier. I have 2 free transfers, a little bit in the bank, and yeah, shame I didn't have some big shame done with Salah last week. And like I said, thanks for being kind on that one. But if we are just looking from here forwards, it almost feels like 2.5 free transfers, just in terms of I don't have a player that. Even if people are going to hold Salah, they're going to lose Son. I only have one player to get rid of. So whatever I do with one of those free transfers, the other one feels a bit freer, if that makes sense. Like I can maybe get a transfer ahead and I can plan my next disaster. Like, I don't know, getting KDB or something stupid.
Oh, yes, please.
Imagine. But I think this week I'll probably be conservative. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, if I do bench Son and keep him, I'll lose a bunch of value. But I think for the medium term, the better move is maybe doing like a Dallo to Walker. Unless we would say get, definite Haaland news. A Dallo to a Walker, then still have 2 free transfers going into next week, which is like 3 weeks away. And that is when I would then get Haaland with then a Son to another midfielder. For example, Eze, and as Rich has mentioned, that's when those fixtures look good. So I think that's the plan, but plenty will definitely change there.
Yeah. And Rich, let's have a quick look at your team. Talk us through it. I'm very jealous of you two, your 2 free transfers.
I'm hoping the team I've got set's the one I sent you. Wait, yeah, it must be. I've got Areola in goal, Saliba, Gabriel and Trent, Richarlison, Saka, Palmer captain, and I've got Son in there as a placeholder. That'll be my transfer. Then Darwin, Alvarez, and Watkins. Not much of a bench. So I think Son, as I mentioned earlier, Son's going to go instead of Salah, and I think it's going to be Son to either Foden or Bruno Fernandes. I'm not sure which. I mean, if I'm going to go for a cheaper player, it'd probably be like Pascal Gross.
Yeah,
I've mentioned. So it's between those three. I am leaning towards Foden. However, I mean, if I want to be really boring, I could just go Bruno Fernandes. The only thing with him is he'd be very short term. So why not just gamble on Foden? And at least I've got a potential. We should emphasise it is a potential double game week. It's not confirmed.
Yeah.
With Foden, who I think long term is a much better pick than Alvarez. So then it will give me more scope to take Alvarez out in the future. So, and then I'll have, like Seb mentioned, 2 free transfers next week. I can then make a decision on if Salah goes or not. He probably will, to be honest. And then I'll probably be looking at Eze because it's home to Sheffield United. And like you mentioned, Andy, captain's really tricky this week. I've got it on Palmer at the moment. It's really close though I was between 4 players, but I've eliminated Alvarez now.
Yeah.
I think there's enough risk that KDB comes off the bench and, Alvarez might get lower minutes, maybe 65, 70 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Could even get 60 minutes or 45. So actually, I'm not going to captain Alvarez.
Yeah.
It's between Saka, Palmer and Darwin. If Darwin gets a penalty, if Liverpool get a penalty, players like McAllister on the pitch and Darwin scores it, I may well be looking at going Darwin captain. Otherwise, it's Palmer or Saka, and that's very, very, very close.
Yeah, fair enough.
If this is the week that Darwin hauls, I'm going to be so happy for you and so sad for myself.
I know. That's why I'm doing it for you, Seb.
Yeah. Thanks, mate.
But it's a big if there. It's a big if that he has to get a penalty. He has to score the penalty. And I have to be confident that he then starts away at Bournemouth.
I mean, Liverpool also have to put up over 7 XG just for him to get 5 points. Like, they can't do that every week, can they?
To be fair, he was subbed off and it was like 4 XG, mate. Come on.
And isn't Senesi suspended? Have I pronounced his name right? The Bournemouth centre-back? I have no idea if this actually makes a difference, but I'm just, again, we're building a narrative. Yeah, Senesi is suspended until the 1st of February.
Wasn't he suspended last week as well?
Possibly.
They conceded 3.
No, because he got booked against Spurs.
Was it? Okay.
That's how long it has been between game weeks, it feels like. Yeah.
I feel like I should mention as well that our podcasting friend from Separate Ventures, Andy, but formerly of this parish, Luke, seemed pretty confident that Alvarez was good for minutes at least this week, because even if Haaland comes back, he didn't think both KDB and Haaland would get a start or significant minutes. So probably an Alvarez start and probably not a particularly early sub. But I'm guessing he will update those thoughts as the week goes on. So
I think Pep
I did read those.
Today.
I think Alvarez starts. But
did he? Oh no.
If you look at the cup game yesterday, I mean, Alvarez came off for De Bruyne, so that just turns me away from captaining anyway.
I think Pep literally came out today and someone said, KDB fit for the weekend? And he was like, no.
Yeah, he won't start.
For the weekend.
Right, okay. Yeah. So the weekend, fine. But, going forward, we mentioned obviously KDB and Foden. Eventually, I guess we'll talk about this when it's closer. But KDB, Foden, Haaland can all play in the same team and replace one of those with Alvarez, and you can have them all as well. Yeah. What you probably can't have is Haaland, KDB, and Alvarez in the same team. Like, you can. We've seen it before. But I think with the current setup, going forward, the least likely combination is those 3. Because Alvarez is basically a deputy for KDB and Haaland. And then at worst could say play out on the right, doing, whatever he'll do out on the right, or a shift of formation where you see De Bruyne and Alvarez behind Haaland, but then you don't see Foden. And I think we're more likely to keep the shape that has the Foden and like the Doku or Grealish.
I just can't see how Alvarez's X minutes are going to drop so drastically. With like everything I'm seeing with KDB is him coming out and saying, "I've got to protect myself. I've got to start being smart with how I'm playing." Because he's older now as well. Is he like 32 now?
He was for quite a while as well. He was one of those players that like they'd line up in the cup and it would be 10 rotated players in KDB. Like he did just get played. Salah-esque. He did just get played in everything.
Yeah. By the way, someone's put a super chat in saying, it was Dive saying, just check when Darwin scored those 13 pens.
Sure.
I mean, one of them was in October.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure there was one in Europe this season as well. So 2 of them have been this season.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I don't think it matters. Like, you can argue that he's having a bad time at Liverpool, confident. I mean, he's not having a bad time. I think he's doing fine in a real football sense. Yeah. But you could argue that confidence is down, therefore his penalty taking ability will be down. But realistically, like he massively overperformed his XG in Portugal. The difference is confidence and goalkeepers, which, I think it's been a while now, hasn't it? Right. So absolutely those things come into play, but I don't think he's as bad as we've seen so far. And even if he is, he still puts up decent points. But to answer the question, the most recent one I have, and again, this is on Transfermarkt, so assuming the source is correct, was in the Europa League this season. He scored one for Liverpool. This is all club football, it looks like, as well, actually.
There's one there's that one I mentioned against Colombia. Yeah, Bielsa. Right. Obviously, he's playing under Bielsa, isn't he?
Oh, of course. Yeah, he's going to
if you check out, I retweeted it this morning. It's a nice penalty. You can see your old mate Bielsa celebrating.
Nice. So he has 12 scored according to this. So I'm guessing the 13 at least counts one of those international ones. None missed. The most recent is this season in the Europa League. Then before that, this is club football. It was 21-22, because obviously didn't take one for Liverpool last year, where he looks to be taking them, or at least taking a good share of them for Benfica, where obviously he's scored all of them. And then also, as Rich said, he's taken at least one internationally and scored it. So has very good pedigree. Small sample, he's not going to keep up 100% record. Someone like Salah has like a mid-80s, I think.
Did you see Salah missed another one in the friendly the other day? I mean, it counted as a penalty, but it hit the goalkeeper's backside.
Funny one, that, because like I would make the argument that even if he's missing some recently, his numbers over time are so good. Other than randomness, why would he suddenly become bad at them? But he could become bad at them, to be fair, yeah. Like, to be proven wrong, I just need more data. And if people can get in there before me, they will be right before me. So fair enough.
Right. Moving on to the community team now then, apart from just talking about Salah hitting keepers' bottoms in the AFCON. Community team.
Friendly, Andy.
Boys, we gotta start, picking ourselves up a bit here, because community team's catching us up. So they scored 103 points in game week 20. They had Areola in goal with 11, Pedro with 2, Trent with 0, Gabriel with 1, Foden with 12, which was their transfer in. They did Diaby to Foden, Salah captain with 32, Son with 9, Richarlison with 8, Palmer with 18, Watkins with 8, and Solanke with 2. They smashed it, to be perfectly honest. So 103 points. They used one free transfer to do Diaby to Foden. They went from 590k to 290k. So they are well up there now. So do you know what, though? I'm glad, because I was obviously giving them a lot of stick, but it's because I wanted to get that fire underneath them. Do you know what I mean? Like, they were obviously falling out in the group chat and they weren't doing very well, and I needed them to get back up, because otherwise people were just going to start leaving.
You were giving them a common enemy, so they could come together, unite. Exactly. Yeah, of course.
So I'm glad that I'm the reason they're doing well now. So well
ever the teacher. Yeah,
you're. And do you know how I knew they'd done well?
Why is that?
Because when they do well, they don't shut up about it. But I never hear about it other
weeks. Exactly. I mean, they're probably not even in the chat anymore. They're probably off drinking still because they had such a good game. But no, well done. I think it's the first out of all 4 of us, so out of us 3 and the community team, to be in the 100 club. Is that right this year? None of us have we?
Unless it happened game week 1.
Yeah, I don't think any of us.
To be honest, I don't always pay attention to that, mainly because I never do it.
But well done.
Oh yeah, definitely. Team. Yeah, it is.
I was going to say, but well done, community team. You absolutely.
I got 118 in game week 9.
Oh, did you?
Which probably means other people did. Yeah. Oh, I captained Salah for 32 points. What a time to be alive.
I got 80.
I think that was just after World Cup, wasn't it? Oh, Dallo. It's the Dallo week. Dallo scored.
Oh, and that one. Carlton Morris and Carl Walker.
No wonder we can't remember.
Sterling. Oh God.
Pure jam.
Turner in goal, Rico Lewis on the bench, the good old days.
Stop talking. Right, Q&A. So people in the chat, you can chuck us in some questions if you like. We've got about 3 to 4 minutes. So if you chuck in your questions, I will try and answer as many as possible. Seb and Rich, I say this every week, they're so good at doing it quickly now. They will give you an answer just like that. They don't talk for ages about each one. They will just be straight in there like a bullet answering your questions. So make sure you chuck in.
Is that a question about Darwin?
My son has entered the toddler age. And typically, as all toddlers, he's not very good at listening. We've been telling him he's a good listener. Like, you're a good listener. And genuinely, he seems to be absorbing that and is becoming better at listening. And I feel like that's what you're doing here, Andy.
What's that?
You two are so quick. You're so good at answering questions.
So good at being quick.
You know what? We are, Rich. We're really good at answering questions quickly.
What I might do is a bit of positive reinforcement every time you do it as well. Like, well done, Rich. Oh, what a quick answer. Right.
Make it sound a little more genuine, you know?
Yeah.
We aren't toddlers.
Damien Broyne says, are Seb and Flappy standing? Seb, are you standing or sitting? Standing.
I always stand for
standing.
meetings and calls and stuff.
Rich, you did a really good short answer then. Well done. Michael Scott, what's the plan for getting Salah back should Liverpool double in 25? Or might the free hit come into play? Week 29 free hit, not quite so attractive after the FA Cup draw. Free hit, either of you thinking about free hit in 25 for the double?
No.
Oh, Seb, good lad. Rich?
I mean, obviously it depends on the double, and I'm trying to answer this quick as well.
Yeah.
I think I've got too many City and Liverpool players now to free hit. I think whether or not they're the best ones or not, I'm just going to have to go with it. So no.
Okay, good. Seb, you did really well then.
I could do.
FPL Chai's in the chat, by the way, who's world number 11, I think it is at the moment. He might correct me there, but he's very surprised we're all standing. Khalid says,
I spent my whole say sitting.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Van Heck from Brighton for only 4 million? Fixtures are lovely. I mean, obviously he's cheaper than Estepinian, but he's been talked up a lot this week. Seb, any thoughts on Van Heck if you want to free up funds or you're on a wild card?
Budget enabler is fine, but I think that's the place he fills in your team.
Yeah, Rich.
I mean, the fixtures are good. I'll just question why, we're looking at doubles and we're looking at moving out premiums. What scenario you're looking at Van Heck? Unless it's wild card.
Yeah.
He's fine for a 4 mil.
Torben says, why are you never showing how your over and under predictions from earlier weeks went? It's just time. That's literally... Yeah, we did once. That's because somebody in the community very kindly did it for us. If somebody that's listening now wants to keep track from this week and let us know how the boys get on, I'd be more than happy for you to do that. I just don't have the time to be able to do it, basically.
I keep meaning to do it, and every time I don't do it, the task gets slightly larger.
Last time we did that, I was winning, so maybe that's why.
Oh, maybe that's why.
I could have won the first thing ever.
That does sound like a thing I do.
First thing I've ever won.
Kaja says, where's the best place to check price changes? Rich, you got a preference?
I go to fplstatistics.co.uk.
Yeah. Seb?
So I would say same, but I haven't been checking recently. So if anything has changed, it may be worth doing some research. But if Rich likes that still, then I used to. So yeah.
I love it.
And last one, Loby says, what about Tony as a differential, Seb?
I think that's a really good shout. We saw Brentford with the same chance of doubles as Man City or at fixtures. Obviously, a very good player would take penalties off Mbeumo and kindly priced. But the issue is we are in the transfer window. So you need to know that he's going to play for Brentford and not just like, he's going to start this weekend and then he's gone next weekend. I think you need to know that he's going to be available, and you might not get that until the end of the month. So that makes it a little bit tough. And we do have plenty of options around our teams, especially up front. Yeah. If Mbeumo were fit, which he's not, I guess the one thing it would do is take penalties off him and hurt him. But he's not fit, so it doesn't matter. You've got a beautiful wrist there, mate.
Rich, what about you, Tony?
I think he's brilliant, but I just don't know how you could sell anyone at the moment. It's hard enough to get Haaland in. Yeah. Solanke has a small chance at a double as well. It's obviously Watkins, Darwin and Alvarez. They potentially have a double. It's Pedro. I just don't see. So no, I like him, but I wouldn't go there now.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I think that's quite a gamble to take. I mean, if you fancy it, fair enough, but I think that's quite a gamble. Right. Thank you so much, chat, for joining us. We peaked at about 550 people, which is not bad considering the mighty Man United are on as we're talking. Rich, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope you enjoyed yourself, my friend.
Yeah, it was nice to be back, and I'm assuming we'll be back next week, maybe.
Pass. Not sure, because we'll be halfway through a game week again, won't we?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, probably not even halfway through. So we'll see.
It was nice to speak to you both, regardless.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, maybe Friday. I don't know what we're doing actually. Seb, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, he's doing nice short answers. I like it. Thank you so much again, like I said, for everybody in the chat. We have probably one of the longest game weeks ever coming up now. Friday. It's going to last, 10 days, I think it was. So this next game week. So make sure you transfer there. Make sure you go back and watch the rest of the stream. We've got some fantastic stuff we did tonight. I'm saying that. I just kind of host it. These boys are the ones that are helping you.
Oh, mate, you're bullying though. Don't do that.
So thank you for that. I wasn't fishing. So thank you so much for everybody for
joining us.
Well,
you caught anyway.
And we will join you again either next week or the week after. I'm not sure, but we will join you again when you need us. All right. So thank you so much, and may your arrows be green moving forward. Bye bye.